Carl Jung talked about this shadow. Every human being has like a part of themselves that doesn't want to be seen. For me, the hard thing that is the right thing is to challenge that thinking. So for me, sometimes I'm prone to wanting to create a manicured, safe, curated life.
Yeah.
And that is not where, at least for me personally, is not where spiritual growth happens, because spiritual growth seems to be happening always for me in the wild. Like tremendous gain and growth as a spiritual person, as a man, always seems to be happen when things are very hard and very challenging. And my instincts are to just try to play it safe and keep things status quo. And I don't think that that's really it's never served me well to take that approach. And so I'm rebelling against my own nature.
Yeah.
Honestly.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview truly remarkable, incredible fathers gaining wisdom from their lives, their stories, for you and I to grow in our own craft of fatherhood. This is your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 13 to 20, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 22nd year of marriage. So yes, I am in the thick of it, and I am in this with you, working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world the way we embrace our fatherhood role. The role of the fathers to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend Michael Leonardini, and this one is a doozy. I feel I am talking to a sage, a man who has gained wisdom from thinking deeply about who he is and how all that life has thrown at him has given him opportunities for growth. And my friends, we get to learn from this right now. He has spent 2 decades building brands and telling stories, and you will find him as a great storyteller. And along the way, he lived close to addiction, incarceration, faith, and recovery. And after many years sober, he experienced relapse and learned that abstinence alone does not guarantee wholeness. You can do everything right and still struggle. And in this episode, he shares a tool he has created for all of us that struggle with addiction, coping, and running from the hard parts of life. Enjoy, my friend, Michael. All right, my friends, stoked to be hanging out with Michael Leonardini. Did I nail it?
You nailed it. So
yes,
good.
It's just such a good last name. It's such
something.
A good last name. Yeah,
it
is something.
It is something. It's something for a guy who's mostly Scottish. I gotta say.
It's like you got to say it 5 times real fast.
That's right.
Michael, how old do you find yourself today?
I find myself to be about 58 years old.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
Oh, I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either.
However, the wisdom we're going to pull today, I think we'll think you're 100. Coming up, 58 years old, 60s like around the corner.
Yes, sir.
What's on your mind as a 58-year-old? And it's like you've already surpassed that kind of like halfway mark, right?
Yeah.
So what starts to become on your mind? And let's say it this: what comes on your mind at 58, and then what of that would you share with the 40-year-old version of yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I had this moment a little while ago where I was inspired to read this book by author Arthur C. Brooks. He wrote a book called Strength for Strength, and it's been out for a while now. He just came out with a new book too. But I was on my morning walks and I was listening to this book, and he was talking a great deal about how, you know, people that have careers and they invest a lot of their time and they get a lot of identity out of their work. They have to be prepared for when seasons change, and that, you know, all of that construction and all that building and all of that consuming, or all of that time that goes into building a career, ourselves, our dreams, whatever, that has to transition to do it well. And so I find myself thinking a lot about what texts I will read in the future that brings me more wisdom, and
Mm.
the things that I might be willing to let go because they no longer have to come with me. So that's
Mm.
kind of what I'm thinking about. But I also think a lot about my physicality and how to stay strong,
Mhm.
and how to keep my mind super sharp, and to continue to push myself into uncomfortable places like where I find myself at the moment.
Hmm. It's so good. As you talk about the wisdom that is brought to you, this thought popped in my head is like, what do you do with that wisdom? Right. So knowledge is one thing, right? If you said, I just want to be
Mhm.
smarter, right? But
Right.
but it's like wisdom. Wisdom is like really comes from a life lived. Um,
Yeah.
but then what do you do with that wisdom? Right? How do you
Mhm.
find yourself? You have two sons, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
How do you find yourself desiring or opportunities to share that with them?
Well, my sons are young, but they're not little boys. They're
Mhm.
31 and they're 28. And so, given their age and their access to information, it's really shocking to realize how much head knowledge they have about things that I have learned
Mhm.
sort of the hard way, or through therapy, or through books, or through meetings that I go to. And so they have a lot of head knowledge, but I think the contrast is that I have a lot of heart knowledge with
Mm.
with some of the same head knowledge that they've acquired. So
Mhm.
so it's kind of fun to have these intimate conversations with my sons and other men that are close to me in my little soul circle, and um and listen to them talk about their attachment styles, or talk about their love language, or talk about love in general. And then all of the things that I've experienced that are more deeply rooted in real life experience that they haven't had yet. So it's kind of
Mm.
fun. That's really fun, actually.
Yeah, and do you find that they're open to your sharing of heart knowledge?
Yeah, I think they are, because I think the older they get and uh, the more experience that they have,
Mhm.
when they fall in love for the first time, or they
Mm.
lose it, or they lose their job for the first time, or
Mm.
they wreck their car for the first time, or they lose a really good friend because they don't
Mm.
they're not seeing eye to eye anymore. That that I think that things that I've said in the past kind of resonate and come forward, and then we can talk about that, which is really cool. That's and and then I have to remember, "Oh, yeah, we had that conversation, didn't we? That's cool."
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like some things they can't really realize till whatever 22, 25, 30. Like this shit's hard. Life.
Really hard.
Yeah. Do you think that parents in general, do you think that we protect our kids too much in those teen years? Like I'm wrestling with this now
Mhm.
as I've got a 20-year-old, an almost 18-year-old, two 16-year-olds, and I'm like, and then I have a 13-year-old, right? But I'm
Yeah.
on the tail end of like, ooh, maybe I should have let them struggle a little bit more at 13, 14, 15. Like that seems like prime
Yeah.
struggle ages
That's
because
right.
middle school is already weird as frick.
Yep.
So I wonder, going back to me 5 years ago, I think I would maybe let them sit in the struggle of Timmy doesn't like me or my teacher sucks or whatever. I think sometimes
Yeah.
I personally can jump on the bandwagon of my kid and be like, yeah, Timmy is an idiot.
Totally.
And yeah, your teacher's a moron. Um, Instead of letting them just sit in it because when you're 25 and you wreck your car and you got no money, like whatever, it's like you
Yeah.
got to deal with it. Anyways, your thoughts on as you reflect back.
Yeah. It's funny, I was just talking to a good friend of mine about this exact thing yesterday,
Mm,
but I won't talk about her experience, I'll talk about mine. But it's so relevant because we, as adults with adult children, or young adults learning how to drive, or learning, you know, how to pass exams in college, these are important things, right? So, um, I think that I think that I want to do this right. I want to get this right. Um, I think as a dad, uh, having been raised by, my father, who was really, really, really stoic and really strong and did not show a lot of affection. And me growing up in the 80s,
Mm,
where I was kind of the latchkey kid, where I was on my own, my parents were working and all of that. I think what I gleaned from all that is when I became a dad, in some ways I really wanted to protect my sons in
mm,
ways that I didn't feel like I was protected and or that I was communicated to and taught in ways that I really wanted to be taught. And at the same time, I think I also wanted to do something which wasn't right to do, which was I wanted them to be exonerated from pain and suffering. And
mm,
that was really not a good choice
mm,
because that's not real.
mm,
That's not that as much as I don't want my sons to experience pain or suffering or even hard work to some degree,
mhm,
uh, that's just not good teaching. But I had
mm,
to learn, I learned that the hard way because I spent a lot of years giving them trophies for doing little things that weren't, it's not that they weren't special, they just weren't the right ceremonies or they weren't the right time
mhm.
to boost them up to give them so many compliments when really we were just talking about making the bed you know
Right,
so
right.
does
Yeah,
that
it's
make
good.
sense?
To 100%. And
Yeah,
I feel like I'm just making this shift. A great example is my brother is here for my daughter's graduation, and me and him and his son and my son and one other boy went and played airsoft. And like, we're not big airsoft guys, but we just went and
yeah,
played for like
yeah.
2.5 hours the other night. And my brother and I kept winning. And typically, I see my brother and I go like, "Hey, they're not doing so well. Let's just like let them have one."
Yeah.
But I've had some older guys on my podcast over the last, couple years, and I've kind of heard
Mm-hmm.
this theme of let your kid win till he's like 7 or
Mm-hmm.
8, whatever, and then make them earn it because
Yeah,
it's like in their gut soul, they know whether they earn winning you at checkers or not, right?
that's right,
So
that's right, that's
so
right.
anyways, we just kept playing our hardest and we won some and we lost some. But I think it was good, and there was even a moment where there was a tension actually, I think, between me and his son, and nothing was ever said. And I'm like kind of praying to the like Holy Spirit in my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
do I say something like overly apologize or praise him because there was a little friction between the two of us? And I just
Mm-hmm.
felt this like, just let him be in it, and then you also learn to be in it, and then things will be good in like a half an hour. You know what I mean?
That's right, that's right.
So it's something that I'm learning now. And I think it's
Yeah.
helpful for dads to hear you and I talk about that because
Mm-hmm.
most of us, no one's been talking about these kinds of things with us.
That's right. And I'm glad you shared that story because it reminds me that I've seen this in other parent-child relationships, whether it's father-son or even mother-daughter, is sometimes if sometimes as men, if we're carrying wounds that haven't necessarily been addressed, we can find ourselves subconsciously or consciously starting to compete with our kids
Mm,
in weird ways. And that's really unfortunate.
yeah.
My dad and my brother were highly competitive,
Hmm.
like the entire relationship, because my dad was so strong and he was so tough and he was so capable and he was so all those things that you think makes up a good man
Mm,
were also the things that kept him away from his own son
mm,
and that they didn't have the tender parts too. So it turned into competition, not like we have love and we have connection and we have this bond. And when we play, like you're talking about, when we play, we aren't doing harm or competing. We're just playing,
mhm,
and I think that that's kind of really, at least for me, that was really important to learn. And I told my youngest son, who's 29, he was asking me the other day, he's like, what did you learn, when you were raising Adam, who's my oldest?
mhm,
And I said, well, my oldest son is extremely creative and very, very intelligent. And I'm pretty creative, but I'm not that smart. compared to people in my family who I think just
Mm,
were gifted. They have more, their gifts are different than me,
mm,
than mine. And I told my son, I said, I said, the thing that I learned early on is that you never compete with your child.
mm.
Never compete. Never, ever, ever as a dad compete with lift them up, build them up, find their gifts, shine the light on that, and never compete. That was my take on that.
Hmm. And really what you're saying is like is not like don't beat them at basketball. It's more internally am I comparing my life, my work, my gifts to my son and then
Mhm.
in a way like maybe diminishing or not honoring or celebrating
Yeah,
his gifts because it makes me feel insecure about mine.
that's right. Yeah. I mean, is it wrong to notice that your child might be wildly more intelligent than you, or wildly more gifted in certain ways than you, or more handsome than you, or
Mm.
more has a better memory than you, or like is that bad? No, of course not. It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's almost like I mean, that's the hope, right?
Yeah,
The hope is that my kid's
yeah,
going to,
yeah,
like all the work that you and I do, that our sons get to stand on our shoulders. Like that's generational thinking. Like all the work
yeah,
that you and I are doing on ourselves
yeah,
and in our family should really be for the purpose of future family, future generation.
yeah,
But, I think part of the problem is, America in general is so individualistic.
yeah,
We're focused on our own happiness. It's like, gosh, dang it. I heard somebody yesterday. Yeah, I asked them what their family's passionate about. It wasn't a podcast, it was just a lady
yeah,
who's actually an employee of this other company I'm supporting. Anyways, she's like, yeah, we're really in the kid phase right now, and then when they move out, we'll get back to doing the things we love. And I'm like, oh, like
yeah,
what the heck are you talking about? Like this mindset. It's like family is everything. My brother and I were
yep.
working down here in the office last night. He was helping me fix a door because my brother is way better at construction than me, and I am happy to celebrate that.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, and we're just like, what's the purpose of life? We're like having this conversation, and it's like it
Yeah.
just comes down to family.
Hmm.
Like it just comes down to family. Anyways, you and I could clearly just start talking and go forever.
We could riff
So
on that. We could riff
yes,
on that quite a
so
bit. A lot
so
of
I
experience there.
yeah, I want to move into a couple things. So,
Yeah.
you just recently launched a Kickstarter campaign. For those of you not familiar with Kickstarter, which you should be, I've done two of them. They are extremely difficult. My podcast manager has like begged me never do it again. So guys, I just ask that you would, hear out what we're about to talk about and then go check out Michael's Kickstarter because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So, Sunjoy. Tell us what
Yes, sir.
Sunjoy is. Tell us the purpose, how you came to it, and then we'll circle back on how guys can learn more about it.
Yeah. Um, Sunjoy is something that I started working on about 2 years ago. And um, in full disclosure, I've spent a lot of time in men's recovery groups, both faith-based and secular. So it might be from Celebrate Recovery to Michael Dye's program called the Genesis Process to AA and, all kinds of things. And um, 2 years ago, I felt very compelled to start sort of, there's a very divergent process in thinking, and there's a really convergent process in thinking. And so I've been collecting a lot of information and about things that motivate me to think about life differently.
Mm.
How do I know myself better? Like Romans 8, right? That classic question, which is, why do I do the things that I do?
Oh
It's
gosh.
it's a heck of a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll spend the rest of my life thinking about that now
Mm-hmm.
that I'm really paying attention. And a younger me was not really paying attention about the why do I do what I do, is more about what am I gonna do and how am I gonna make that happen. But yeah.
Well, and that I feel like I'm sort of working to make this transition right now, but I
Mhm.
sort of feel like 20s and 30s is why are other people doing the things that they're doing that derail me? And then
Right.
you start to realize like these five different people with
Yeah.
different situations derail me in the same way. So
Yep.
maybe it's more about, why am I getting derailed the
Right.
way that I'm getting derailed, right? And so
Right.
then it comes down to this opportunity for us to learn thyself,
Yep.
and then be able to kind of rise above the pettiness that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Although what I've found is there's no destination, which is a little frustrating, but then freeing, I
It
guess, at
is.
the same time.
Yeah. Well, you just have to learn how to accept those things, right? To some
Mhm.
degree, and then just stay on your path and be on your journey to discover what it is that you're meant to do. And so that's kind of my story with Sunjoy, was that I was going on a walk one day and I was listening to the Bible on the Dwell app,
Mm,
and I was in the book of Acts, and I was at the book chapter 2:28, and in that particular point of the text, it talks about um, the author is talking about David, and he's referencing the Psalms, and he talks about how David said that, God will never leave him in Hades, and that he will pitch his tent in the land of hope,
mm,
and that he will see God's love like Sunjoy all around him. And
hmm,
and at that particular time in my life, my father was dying from heart failure.
mm,
And so I get a little tender about that because I love my dad. But um, when I heard that, I didn't know, I don't know at the time, I didn't know why that stuck out to me as much as it
mhm,
did, that word Sunjoy. But I think it had a lot to do with my dad and how
mm,
proud and how proud of my dad was of me,
mm,
and how proud I am of my sons,
mm,
and and how much God loves me. And so for me, it was just like this perfect tripod of like, wow, God loves me, my dad loves me, and I love my sons. This is
mhm,
really powerful stuff. And from there, uh, I just felt really compelled to synthesize a lot of things that I had learned over the years. And because I'm kind of a seeker, I'm kind of a Jacob kind of guy. I like to wrestle with things. I don't take things on their, I'm skeptical, I'm curious, I'm creative. So
mhm,
I just don't, if you tell me something, I'm going to listen, but I'll probably go and investigate. And I'll probably
mm,
somehow, if I'm going to apply it to my spirit, like if knowledge is in the gut, then the only way I'll be compelled to change is if I really drink it in.
mm,
Um, so the, because of a younger me, you know, I, I read all the great mystics. I was really into Rumi, the great, poet, Walt Whitman, Young. I mean, I read them all. I've done all the weird stuff too. Not just Christianity, and and so when dealing and with facing hard topics around things about loss, addiction, identity, suffering,
mm,
big things that we
yes.
all things we face or don't choose to face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those are things that I really felt I really wanted to think about and talk about. And so I spent about a year and 3 months writing uh, um, on these themes that are intended to help people who are struggling with. I use the word recovery, but recovery doesn't have to be labeled as addiction. It could be labeled as coping
Mm,
or a way of thinking, because I think we all need to be, or we all should be in recovery, because we're all suffering with something that causes us to be separate from ourselves or each other or from God.
mm,
That's kind of my take on it. And I wrote these cards. It's a deck of cards there's 52 of them. You can read one once a day or once a week, and they're like meditations on
mhm,
ideas that can help people think about, well, Romans 8. Why do I do the things that I do? Why do I think the things that I think? And is this serving me, or do I need to recalibrate?
mm.
Yeah.
I'm holding the cards in my hands right now. They are beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, I mean, super well done. So I'm looking at one right now, and so like on one side, it's gray with a prompt, um, or like a title, "Missing God's Messengers," and then the backside it gives some thoughts to sit and consider, to contemplate on, or to journal about.
Right.
Um, It says sometimes we approach spiritual questions with practicality, wanting to fix what's broken, needing to solve what's complex with our own strength. And then God speaks through the connection. I mean, gosh, this is something. It's like I'm been reading the Bible in a different way lately.
Hmm.
I think and it's probably because I'm older now, but I just see all these stories. They're really just showing us God's relationship with people.
Yeah.
I think so much of my life I've driven performance based. I've kind of been living with the knowledge of the
Yeah.
tree of good and evil. Like, am I good or am I bad? Which is
Right.
like so not the point.
Yep.
And you see Abraham and David screwing up big time, and then God's not like, well,
Yep.
can't use you anymore until you fix your problems. God's like, there are consequences, and they're big and they suck, but
Yep.
but
That's exactly right.
it's not because I don't love you. It's because you're learning to trust me.
Yep.
Um, Man, so the cards
That's
are
right.
beautiful. Love them.
Yeah. On that particular card, is is when we are suffering, and I will just say this, as men, and I am like this too. I've worked really hard to not be like this. Is that oftentimes when we are secretly suffering, we're in challenges, um, things aren't going right for any number of reasons, right? Doesn't have to be addiction. It can be a career bump. It can be a career restart. It can be because your kid got really sick and you don't know if it's going to work out. And oftentimes we will isolate internally,
Mm,
because sometimes I think our family or our friends, Brene Brown talks about this really well in one of her books. She talks about how in her research that women want men to be vulnerable. They
mm,
want their man to be accessible and to share his heart, you know. And then sometimes when a man shares his heart, she's like, "Yeah, let's not do that. Get back on the white horse," you know.
mm, mm,
And the thing is that a man needs community. A man needs friends
mm,
to
mm,
process complicated issues. And I think that sometimes that God uses other people to help us navigate and find our way through some really difficult storms that we find ourselves sometimes. But that is not necessarily our inclination because we like to solve problems and be strong. So it's kind of a catch 22 for guys sometimes, I think, is I'm strong enough to do this on my own, but then discovering like, well, maybe I'm not.
yeah, yes, it's complicated, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I got vulnerable with my wife 2.5 weeks ago, with like a self-discovery I had in a counseling session,
Yeah.
and I shared it, and it brought her to like a defensiveness,
Yep.
and it stung. And so I have found myself in certain areas a little hard-hearted, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
towards the situation. And so I've been wrestling with that. Like, it's very easy to just default to work because my
Yep.
work is so exciting right now. It's going so well.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm like, okay, but I'm committed to this thing. Obviously, it's not like leading me to something. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't share it.
Sure.
Um, but I found that, right? Like, okay, so if I would like to have a council of men that I could maybe run this through and
Yeah.
talk through, and or realize that if I'm going to share something vulnerable, I have to be unattached from the outcome of how the other person might respond,
That's correct.
which which is really difficult, right? Because you're wanting to share, like, why am I being vulnerable?
Hmm.
Is it because I'm looking for that attaboy? Or so it's a loss of control, which is like, for
Yeah.
me, it's like,
That's right.
okay, am I willing to do it again? And I have to be, otherwise it's not true vulnerability. It's like, I don't know. But anyways, I just share that because
No, that's right.
it's hard.
I was at a little fireside chat with some of my in-laws who they were all men. We were just out in the country at a,
Mm,
little bonfire, smoking cigars and talking. And of course, lo and behold, one of my in-laws is a former Marine and they had a child a couple years ago, and it's changed the dimensions of their relationship a lot because
mm,
it's a little baby, and it's changing his wife's personality because of all of the chemistry
yeah,
in a woman's body,
yeah.
and so his inclination was to get quiet, not not engage in what he was really feeling and just go with it. And they found themselves in marriage counseling, and here they are having to be vulnerable. And she was very
Mhm.
vocal and he was very private because of course he was dealing with it in his own mind. He didn't
Right.
have and and the way that he was sharing his points of view about even how the therapist how he felt the therapist was engaging with him versus her felt oddly unfair to him. And I
Mhm.
think and I think sometimes it can feel like that because we're just not used to, like you said, you said it so well, that if I tell you how I feel, now I'm vulnerable.
Mhm.
And I also don't get to control the outcome of the results of my own words.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you can't be seen or see the other person clearly. And it's a huge issue, in relationships.
For sure. And then the question is like, are you seeing me the way I want to be seen?
Yeah.
Um, and then I think that it can be a reflection. Like one of the reflections is like I can't really change their response, so it's like
Nope.
how am I being experienced? So to be able to reflect on, I think I'm communicating this way, but I may not be. Okay,
Yeah,
again,
for sure.
Sunjoy. All right, so
Yes.
so we have we have these cards.
Yes,
They're an opportunity for journaling, for thinking,
they are.
so it doesn't replace that if somebody is in need of, I mean, let me just say this and then you can give me your feedback. This
Sure.
isn't just for the guy who's like addicted or in recovery, who is like goes to AA, goes to this group, that group. It is for that, right? It is
It
for that.
is.
So like that middle ground, but it's also for the guy who is coping with not talking to his wife, and so he's just digging more into work, and then before you know it
Mhm.
he's 3 or 4 years down the road and they're totally disconnected. So
Yeah.
not that those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, but I like how you said addiction, which I
Mhm.
think many of us can be like, oh, I'm going to cut out, like that cuts out
Yeah.
90% of the people, which we
Yep.
know that's not true, maybe 50.
Nope. It's
But coping
maybe.
is the other 50, right? Coping is the
Yeah.
other 50. So it's like
Yeah.
we're all cope. And I like it. You said that they're the big questions are identity, loss, addiction, coping, and suffering.
Yeah.
And maybe we carve out addiction and coping because it's a response to the identity, the loss, and the suffering questions,
Right.
that we either do or don't want to face. So this is for everybody who's wanting to
It is.
think and understand themselves. I guess for
Yeah.
you, if you think about somebody going through all 52 cards and like
Mhm.
having kind of a practice with this,
Mhm.
um, what's the outcome? And I know that's like not the point, but I think people are also like, if I'm going to dig into something, I'm looking for the ROI or the results
Yeah.
or whatever. So when you
Yeah.
think about that, what does that look like?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think the ROI, my intention behind the creating these things was the ROI is knowing yourself better.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just like that's the like why do I think that? Why do I feel that way? Or why do I respond that way when I don't want that in my like I think it's pretty classic, right? When a man's identity and when a man's heart is misaligned, there's things not
Mm,
congruent with
hmm.
what he says and what he does. Oftentimes, we can create a lot of damage in the world. Like men are violent. to some degree. And the world
Hmm.
is hard. And so when a man is misaligned in his spirit, like starts there. Like all addiction, in my opinion, and that can be addiction to ice cream. It doesn't have to be
I do love
pornography.
ice cream. Yeah, I love it.
I'm just telling you, it doesn't have to be the really ugly ones that are really easy to discount. But regardless, I think that when our spirit is misaligned with our creator, it sort of just starts to unravel from there. And when a man, this is my opinion, and I've seen it and mirrored in other men who I really respect, is that when a man's spirit is aligned with God and he understands that he's loved and that he's secure in his identity with God,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's that simple. It's hard, but it's simple too. It's complex, but if you can just accept it as love, like the most incredible love ever, then you're not alone. And if you're not alone and you're loved, then you might accept that and share that love with other people because
Mm,
you understand it for yourself. I
mm.
think it's really hard to love other people well if you don't love yourself, or if you don't
Oh,
believe,
yes.
or if you don't believe that your creator loves you. Like
Hmm.
those are terrible identity problems, because you're in a world of very little meaning and very little security. And that makes you get to work because you got to go find that security somewhere
Yes.
else. Yeah, at
Yes.
least that's what I've experienced in my own life. And so I think these cards are intended to just help us, um, address things that we think about that we work pretty hard sometimes to just kick under the rug because we got other things to do, like a softball, and we've got spreadsheets to create, and we got
Hmm.
Zoom calls, and we've got to go on
Hmm.
vacation too, and all those things, right? So it's just like a little time out for you with a cup of coffee or before you go to bed, and just like pause and just say, where am I? And how do I feel? And
Mm.
what does God want to say to me today? You know,
Ugh.
you know,
Yeah.
whether it's the
Dude.
Bible or these cards or a poem or watching a bird fly through the sky or a fish you catch. I mean, you get it all over the place, right? But it's just being mindful enough to pause and say, where am I? And what needs to speak to me now? And that's kind of the intention.
All right, my friends, you've been hearing me talk about the Genesis program through Rise of Kings, and I am incredibly excited to invite you to it as well as be a part of it. Rise of Kings has helped thousands of men over the last 5 years discover the reality of their identity, and now they have launched the Genesis program, which is for young men ages 13 to 17. And here's the idea. You as a father would take your son to this 2-day event to start to initiate a conversation and an awareness around what it means to be a man. But the conversation would really be between you and your son. And then after the 2-day event, once we expose your sons to the 4 pillars, to what it means to be a man, then we work with you and your son. I'm actually the coach for the mastermind program. You got Mondo Davis, who does the 2-day event, incredible man, 11 children. He's currently working with his 16-year-old son. I'm working with my 16-year-old son. So you guys, this is fresh, this is real, this matters. So we want to invite you to the 2-day event with you and your son. Then after that, I'll be the coach for the 6-month mastermind, where I'm working with you every 2 weeks. And then I'm working with your sons every 2 weeks, with the idea that we're helping you to really step into what does it look like to help transition your son from a boy into a man. This is something you won't want to miss. It is worth the time, the resources to really help your son see who he is young and early, so that he can love, lead, serve a family and the kingdom moving forward at a young age. Please go to riseupkings.com/FFN to register. You and your son would love to see you in the program. Yeah, so good. It's like it's so hard for us men, even myself. It's like we want to just get to work, right? We want to get to work.
Yeah,
Whatever that is. Like I don't want to sit and think, but then at the same time, I also know that I'm gonna be like an 85 or 90-year-old man in a coming to the end of my life, and I'm gonna
yeah,
be reflecting back at on some things, and
you
and
really
I'm
will.
gonna, yeah, I'm gonna want to know, like, I did all that I could to
Hmm.
leave my family well.
Yep.
Um, and I
Yep.
think that's our first and foremost call on our lives. I get stuck and kind of don't like the gifts and calling conversations necessarily. Um, this is growing up in church. But I
Sure.
think this whole idea of what does God want to say to me?
Mhm.
And I think many of us men may have a skewed view of a father's what a father wants. Um, and I love you posted on your stories the other day, and I'm gonna jack it up, whoever said it, but prayer isn't about a performance or what does it's not about changing God. It's about us. Like maybe you remember what it was, but it's about
Yeah,
my
that's right.
nature being shifted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I read this book by Thich Nhat Hanh. I probably said his name wrong. Uh, he was a Buddhist monk. He passed away a while ago, but he wrote a whole book on prayer, and prayer is really important to me, but I think I had a really skewed perception of prayer
Mm,
because I've been in the previous iterations of Michael have been like, here's and in recovery, there was a guy in a recovery group at church once who called these things
mhm.
popcorn prayers. He called them
Okay.
popcorn
Oh yeah,
prayers.
go around the room or whatever.
Well, just super fast, like, just a super quick prayer. Lord, help my brother. Like that's a popcorn prayer. And then, or it's prayer as pleading, Lord, please heal my cousin of her brain aneurysm, and those are beautiful, valuable prayers. And those are the right prayers, but both popcorn prayers and earnest prayers of healing for yourself or others are totally right. But I think what Thich Nhat Hanh was talking and what that post was trying to address was that that prayer is also an opportunity for self-discovery. And
Mhm.
and that you get to have a relationship with your subconscious because when you're if you're quiet, if you're in a quiet space and you're in some posture of prayer, um, that you're also having a relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think being willing, and it's hard for people to try to create some kind of sacred space, or in church circles, your prayer closet, or whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
which I never say because I don't have a prayer closet. I have a comfy couch and that's it, But it is the idea of allowing prayer also to be an opportunity to understand really what's troubling you or what's
Mm,
real or what your motivations are for things. Like if I had a prayer about this financial deal, or I could just apply it to Sunjoy, Kickstarter. Lord, I really need to raise this money to bring this forward. You gave me this gift. I wrote it. I was obedient. I did it. Please fund the Kickstarter. I can
mhm,
say that. I could do that. I've done that, you know, but at the same time, I can also say, I don't have to be attached to the outcome because
mhm.
it may not be its time. It may not be the purpose. Uh, I mean, Sunjoy could be not the thing. It could be something else, but this is my journey. And
Mhm,
and that is an older man talking. I got to
mhm.
admit, that's not a young man's way of seeing things. I understand that, but it's also a healthy way to see things because that way God isn't, hogtied in the trunk of my car and I'm just
Yeah,
moving forward with my project, right?
right.
I need to know what I'm thinking. I need to understand if am I motivated by selfish things? Like, is it about money? Is it about fame? Is it about success? Or is it about your will be done?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes prayer can reveal parts of me that maybe I don't want to be aware of.
Yeah, or you don't know you need to be, or you don't know what
Hmm.
it'll
Hmm.
do for your peace and joy and all the
Yeah,
fruits of the spirit if
that's
once they're
right.
come to the light.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
man, I
That's
gotta
beautiful.
say, like, okay, so the word, it's I got all these notes here. I wrote down this. it's like, you kind of made a comment that it's about recovery. Like we're all in recovery. And I write the
We
word
are.
down and I'm like, ooh, I don't love the word for Ned, for whatever reason that,
Sure.
I've
Yeah.
got whatever, for whatever reason. So then I'm like, okay,
Yep.
why are we here? It's like a reconciliation. But then I
Mhm.
wrote down this word that our opportunity, because I think I get stuck when the church is constantly like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Be
Oh,
so
man.
grateful. And I'm like, can that really be the best we could
Mm.
do? And so you said, like, I wrote the word down, I highlighted it, and then you
Yeah.
said it. We are on a journey of discovering who we really are. Like,
Yeah.
God's not like, you are so terrible, be better. He's like, you're so awesome, quit falling into doing stuff that doesn't make you feel awesome. Right. And
Yeah.
it's like this lifetime opportunity we have of discovering how he sees us,
Yeah.
right? And also as we start to step into being, 42 and 58 and not being
Yep.
as
Yep.
selfish as we were when we were 25, or maybe more empathetic, is you realize, like, I can also give this to other people around me, right?
Mhm.
Like I realize, like, some of this is just the reality of like the fallen world. And so how do I help others see the reality of how awesome they are without like giving them a trophy for making their bed?
Right.
Um
Exactly.
but then, one of the things I want to challenge dads listening to our conversation right now, because I know you're resonating with these components. You have to be, because
Mhm.
it's true about every man's soul and heart. But you talked about identity, you talked about heart, you talked about alignment. You said men are violent or can be violent.
Can be.
And
Yeah.
I agree with it in the context of, I don't know what to do with this power that's been bestowed upon me. Like,
Mhm.
men, we are freaking powerful. It's
Mhm.
insane how powerful we are. Like, God gave us the gift to create life and then
Yep.
to also create pretty much anything we want to if we put our mind to it, right?
Mhm.
Like, we are so powerful. And even in the context of my home, the way I
Mhm.
walk into a room, the way I speak to my wife, the words I
Yep.
use with my kids, like, wildly powerful. So I want to challenge us with this thought, and then Michael, give me your kind of, flow off of this. But
Sure.
I think I hear a lot of men, even you and I's age or whatever, is like, my dad loves me. I know my
Mhm.
dad loves me, and we almost saying it, not from like, I hope it's true, but there's a little hint of like, I know my dad loves me. And the question I want you and I men to think through is when your kids 40, 50, 60, do you want them to say, I know my dad loved me? Or do you want to be able to say, like, I felt it, like I felt my dad loving it? Because there's a difference
Mhm.
between knowing that you are loved and feeling that you are loved. And I think what can happen is, like, we forget that love is an action. And I think that the only way that our kids can feel loved, not know they're loved, but feel loved, is if you and I do this reflective work that Michael's calling us to,
Mhm.
because we have to love ourselves with action, right? To pause, to do the work, to sit down with the
Yeah.
Sunjoy cards, to journal, to reflect.
Mhm.
Like, I think we have to feel that we're loved, and that's action. Are we patient to ourselves? Are we kind to ourselves? Are we holding grudges against ourselves? Are we keeping a record of wrong against ourselves? Isn't it funny how, like, I remember all the
That's
mean
right.
shit I did to myself, or like my
Yep.
mistakes? I remember
Yep.
this. So I
Yep.
think when we read 1 Corinthians 13 and we're talking about love as an action, if we cannot first give that to ourselves, it's impossible to give it to those around us.
That's right. I agree, Ned. I don't think you can never give anything that you don't possess, right?
Mm, yeah.
I mean, if you don't possess it, you cannot give it because it is not yours. It is not in, it is not in your possession. So if you don't know how to receive love, and this was, my spouse, Mary, when we were
Mm,
first married, um, she told me that her father one day said to her, she said, "Why can't Michael receive love?" And then Mary said to me, "Michael, why can't you receive love?" And I said back, "I have no idea." And then I lived about 16, 17 years of life, in marriage and career and all this, only to finally discover in men's groups that I didn't know how to receive love, and I had to actually focus on that and learn to trust people that when they said they loved me,
Hmm.
that they meant it. That it wasn't, it didn't come with an agenda. It didn't come
Mm.
with
Yeah.
it didn't come with an attachment or an expectation. It didn't come with, well, make sure you perform right or this love will go away, which is abandonment, which was my story. I had a horrible relationship with abandonment because of the way my dad loved.
Hmm.
And when I discovered that, and when I was able to work on abandonment from my father, um, I started to be able to receive love and trust people that they
Hmm.
weren't that they wouldn't leave me when I made mistakes um, or when I was messy, you know, or
Yeah.
when I lied and I didn't even know I lied, or I
Hmm.
didn't discover that I was fabricating a reality because I wanted you to like me.
Hmm.
Like there was so much to discover in all of the things that I did, all the little secret messed up things that uh, affected my relationship with, my wife or my friends and my sons for sure, because I wanted my sons to perceive me a certain way, but that wasn't really real all the time, you know.
Hmm.
But so love, being and giving and receiving love um it is really complicated, but it is also it's actually one of the most beautiful gifts that God gave us was the ability to receive love and to give love. And I know that there's like Joni Mitchell songs or U2 songs or, it's all over the world, right? We're always pursuing this thing about love, but it sounds corny, I know. But
No, as you're saying it, I think that this word trust has just become more in my consciousness.
yeah.
Because it's like, man, I'll tell you I love you. Like, oh, I love you.
Hmm.
And I love it because I remember Rob Bell. I don't know if you followed any of his work, but he had talked about love. He did several of his videos on it, and he's like, "I love you, and I love tacos." Right. So we have this word love, but this word trust. It's like if I say, Michael, I
Hmm.
trust you,
Hmm.
there's like a different weight to that than I love you.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
you brought this up, and so I would love just to touch the surface of this just for a minute because I
Sure.
think the vulnerability slight just brings a depth to like the cards, right? You brought up your dad for a moment and it
Yeah.
was like clear. It's like, oh, for me, it's like, yeah, my dad will pass away one day. What will
Hmm.
that be like? And then there's other
Hmm.
men listening to this going, my dad did pass, or I didn't have a relationship with my dad, or I felt abandoned by my dad, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you brought up Mary
Hmm.
and that you kind of alluded to there's 16 years of you being married and it was you weren't in a place to receive love. And so I'm sure
Yeah,
that put a weight on there.
for sure.
Um, I would just love for you to share whatever you want to share about her and
Hmm.
you. Um, just because I think that marriage is like one of the most important and hardest for sure
Yeah.
things we
Yeah.
do. And I think as you might share one or two things about her and you, that it might make, wow, this card, this work isn't about a question, it's about a opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, yeah, these cards were written in a season where, as I alluded to, when Sunjoy came to me, my dad was passing away. My dad was diabetic from the age of, he was born in 1938. He was diabetic at age 15.
Mm,
And so his whole life lens was um, from the lens of, I'm going to die before I'm 20 years old. I won't be able
mm,
to join. And, this was back when we had a lot of national pride. And so men joined the service when there was a war. And, and he could never join the service like all of his friends did because
mm,
he was diabetic. And so, his lens was a lens of lack, like everything about diabetes kept him from having some kind of life of joy or something that he imagined, right? Opportunities passed him by. And so his relationship to work was everything has to be created by my two hands, because he had no relationship with God at all, because he was mad at God for diabetes, or he's mad at God because his family was poor. I mean, he had a long list of grievances with God because life just wasn't the way he wanted, And so regardless of all that, you know, he was my initial, teacher. And as he aged and began to deteriorate, he got a lot more tender, and there was a lot of opportunities for me to forgive him for um, a lot of the things that he did and taught. Because I kind of look at fatherhood as like either you're a good king or you're a bad king. I don't know if there's much in between, but there's probably in between. Maybe you're just a good king in training, but but those are high bars, right? And so my dad was a very challenging king, and so he didn't teach a lot of things that I needed to learn to be a good partner, to be a good husband. And I rebelled a lot against what my dad's teachings were, because there were a lot of selfish intentions in a lot of his teaching. And I I say it like this: my mom wanted me to be, the version of David where with the lyre. She wanted me to play the instrument and bring peace and well-being to the home. And my dad wanted me to be David with the sword and be a warrior, and and I guess I was both, but I'm probably more of a poet than I am a warrior, if I'm being honest. And because I'm an artist, I'm a creative, But I say all that to say that when I got married, I was really young, and we started a family really young. I didn't really have a lot of skills and tools to be the good dad I always wanted to be, and so I made a lot of mistakes. And in that process, I found a lot of ways to cope with all those conflicts inside of my own spirit about, how did I feel about God? Because I found myself being just like my dad, and like, if God would only do this, but that's not how it works. And I know that now. But regardless, I brought a lot of that to a relationship with a woman that I adored, and God really did give me a great partner to learn some really beautiful lessons about God, because I think that God can use relationships to get us closer to him. Like, imagine how much you think or that your spouse loves you. Like, if you're in a loving relationship and you feel loved and adored and respected, that's a lot. That's a lot to receive from somebody, and that's just a glimpse into the amount of infinite love that God has for his creation. And so, but I think my relationship with Mary was a vehicle for me discovering how much God loved me, because he gave me a beautiful person to learn and share life with, and but that doesn't explain it all, because that's only, the psychiatrist Phil Stutz talks about life is in snapshots, that oftentimes we see life like a picture, and we only see life in one dimension. It's either we're smiling or we're not, or we're rich or we're poor, or we're this or we're that. But life is 3D, or, and so a snapshot is not the whole story for anybody, and part of my marriage story, that relationship story, is that, Mary, in our relationship, we both had wounds that we brought into the marriage, and that we had to work out through our faith with God. And sometimes we are successful in overcoming, those childhood traumas that we experience, and sometimes we can't. And after 32 years of marriage, unfortunately, my wife succumbed to um, health problems and she passed. And that that is a whole nother chapter of my life that is poured into these cards in a way of looking at that relationship in a way that in a way that all the questions that I was asking, while I was writing,
Hmm.
even with about Mary and about love and about insights and, wisdom and how to find, in the Bible, it talks, there's pain in the offering, and
Hmm.
I, I hated that scripture because I always felt like they would read that and they would say that because they wanted me to give more. And I was poor. I couldn't give anymore. But now I understand that the pain in the offering, to me, that when and that for and the pain in the offering means that love is gonna cost you.
Hmm.
It's gonna cost you everything, just like
Hmm.
it. It costed Christ his life. Love costed him everything. It took his life, and I'm not saying that love is all sacrifice and all this stuff. I'm just saying that to give and receive love is extremely sacrificial.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also the most beautiful thing that I think a man or a woman can ever experience on this planet. So, um, yeah, I don't know, Ned. I don't know if I answered your question very
You
good,
did.
but, but that's, uh, it's, yeah, there's a lot of, there's pain in the offering, but it's worth it. And I think as a dad, as men hearing us speak, I would just absolutely want to make sure that I would say that um, it's a privilege to be a man. It's a privilege to be a dad.
Hmm.
It's a privilege to be a husband. it's it's so important
Yeah.
to do the best you can do.
Hmm. Yes. Go ahead.
One of those cards that I wrote, it says "Finish strong." Everybody's watching,
Hmm.
and that came from um, there was a pastor at a church in Sacramento, California. His name was Sherwood Carthan, and he was this tremendously huge man, huge in personality, huge in voice, huge in love. He would cry at the drop of a hat. He was so beautiful, and he was the chaplain of the Sacramento Kings back then. And I went to a men's retreat where he was the pastor and speaker, and you know, it would it was nighttime and it was beautiful, and there were a lot of men there, and just in this impassioned sermon, and he's just weeping, a big black man, just beautiful person, crying and beseeching men to finish strong
Hmm.
because everybody is watching, and in the circle of recovery or in your circle of friends, people are looking to be inspired
Hmm.
that if you can do it, maybe I can do it too. If you can stay married and get through the loss of a child, that has died, or or you lose a kid to addiction, yeah, and they're out in the world and they're homeless, or that your career got blown up because you made some bad business deals or whatever. Like, people are always looking at other people to influence them either in a positive way or a negative way, and I think a good king, it knows that people are watching, your kids are
Hmm.
watching,
Hmm.
your coworkers are watching. As Christian men, we know that we are highly influential, because we're held to a higher standard. Right? When we profess that we're something or that we believe in something, then all of a sudden, there's evidence to
Hmm.
whether it's true or it's not true. right? So I don't know. I think about stuff like that, and I do believe that finishing strong is a great call to action for men, because it doesn't mean it's going to be beautiful or perfect. It's going to be really,
Hmm.
it will be messy. Love is messy. Life is messy, but it's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, as you are sharing, like I'm writing down my own learning, and I think one of the things that you share is people. So people are looking, people are watching. And I think as
Yeah.
men, sometimes we default to like, well, I better do it right, or I better do it
Mm-hmm.
perfect, and that's so not the point. Like that's not
Mm-mm.
inspiring. Even as we
No.
sit here, if you think about the most inspiring things that maybe you or I said, people
Mm-hmm.
would comment on our sharing of our sufferings. They
Sure.
wouldn't comment on our successes in the sense of like
Sure.
me sharing. I shared something with my wife 2 weeks ago and it frustrated me. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's inspiring. You share
Yeah.
about this 32 years of real hard work with your wife, and then she passes away. You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. Like that's inspiring in the sense of like that makes me as a man want to go like lean into the marriage, right?
Yeah.
So so I share that to go like when we say finish strong, or it's not finish perfect. It's
Nope.
not finish do it the right way. When you find yourself thinking about that, men, you're falling into what God never intended, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, of
Yeah.
the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. Like that was always that's not the point of measuring our success. But all of us have that question wrestling, am I doing it right or wrong? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the wrong thing to be wrestling with. Um
I agree with that, Ned. Wholeheartedly.
Michael, do you have a few more minutes? I know we're like
I
over.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Can I respond to that
please.
real
Yes,
fast?
yeah.
I know I'm one for words, so I'll make this one brief. But
They're good. They're good words.
but
Oh,
uh,
Dave.
I was going to say that uh, yeah, in the notion of finish strong is not about doing it right, doing it perfect, and I don't care what your conditioning has been about being
Mm,
perfect and being right, because that's just earned love and that's just earned respect, and that's not real reality. And
mhm,
um, I think the better thing to say is finish strong, do it authentically, do it honestly, and do it with an open heart.
mm,
And be messy. It's okay to be messy.
yeah.
I think you have to be messy sometimes to and not care what it looks like.
Yes, and realize I think that through all the ups and downs of the suffering and the mess is the trusting and learning to trust God, that this
Yeah.
is about relationship. And I
Yeah.
think a helpful thing is like we talk about how awesome King David is, and
Mm-hmm.
David is a man after God's heart. Like, go read 10 Psalms and look at this
Yeah.
dude's suffering, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's
That's right.
messy. It's super
Yep.
messy.
Super messy.
Um,
He was messy.
yeah. Okay, so I want to close a loop on this just to make sure like people know. Okay, so you've got these 52 Sunjoy cards. We've dug into the purpose. You've got some journals. You are on Kickstarter. It's
Mm-hmm.
going until August, and then after that I'm sure you'll be able to buy them on a like what's the website? So go support the Kickstarter. I supported it yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
Got the so you're working to raise $14,000.
Yeah.
um, Men can go and pre-order essentially. So Kickstarter is pre-ordering this incredible gift. Um, and once it's said and done, you'll get you're basically pre-ordering it. Uh, if this gets listened to in 6 months, right? A
Mm-hmm.
year, 2 years,
Yeah.
what's the website? Where could people go and grab this moving
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah. So I have a website called sonjoy.com, son-joy.com. And eventually soon there'll be a Shopify experience where people can just purchase. So that'll be coming soon after, post Kickstarter stuff. I'm raising the money that I'm trying to raise is really just um, to print and manufacture, because I've already written everything. Everything's
Yeah.
been everything's designed. It's all everything's done. It's just now raising the funds to bring it to the world. I also wrote, I, I, I just finished a 13, sorry, yeah, 12-week workbook, which
Mm,
is basically taking 12 of the 52 cards and put them in a arc from beginning to end, filled with writing prompts,
mm,
drawing, and journaling prompts, so that you can go through a topic in a week and really, really dig into some really interesting questions that come out of the cards and engage both your right brain and your left brain, so that, because that's how you can really, really learn,
mm,
is because, I think that learning about yourself can be a creative act as well. It's just
mhm.
not, it doesn't have to be about facts and logic. I think we're really emotional creatures deep down inside, and I think we need more than that. And so what Sunjoy does is it just engages your whole brain, and it can be a lot of fun. So yeah, it'd be available online.
Love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
Yeah,
Thank you. And
yeah.
then on Instagram, it's your name, right?
It is, yeah.
Yep. Okay,
Mhm.
and all those will be in the show notes. So there'll be links to Kickstarter, links to the website, and then links to the Instagram as well. Okay. Last couple things, and I want to end here. Is one of the questions I ask is like, what are you rebelling against, and what do you hope to
Mm,
create? And you just gave a couple of answers that I just did not want to miss. So, one of the things, and I'll bring them both up, and then you could just speak to them.
sure.
So, like,
Sure,
one
sure.
thing you brought up is the hard thing is nearly always the right thing. So, like, pretty much
Yeah.
all of us have something in our life right now. I'll give you two examples for me. Right,
Mhm.
my son's going to be 18 soon. I have a year and a half until he moves out, and I'm working on a rite of passage for him.
Nice.
And there are times when it pops into my head, and it's almost like overwhelming the reality that it's going to happen, that I almost find something else to take my mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I keep doing that, I'm going to miss my window to do it as well as I want to. So that's an example of like, there's a hard thing that I
Yep.
need to give space to. Then the other one that I'm in the midst of is like learning, and I already alluded to it with my wife, but learning that her and I are in a transition of what family looks like,
Yeah.
and finding the right vulnerable way to work with her on it without it being transactional, because I'm looking for like to close loops as a doer.
Yep.
And so those are two like hard things that I wake up thinking about, I fall asleep thinking about, and then during the day I find myself putting important things on my calendar that I need to. So I bring those up to be real with people, and then you
Yeah.
go, maybe you speak to what's the hard thing is nearly always the right thing.
Yeah. Um, for me, I think that Carl, Carl Jung talked about this shadow. Like every human
Hmm.
being has like a part of themselves that doesn't want to be seen. And for me, the hard thing that is the right thing is to challenge that thinking. So for me, sometimes I'm prone to wanting to create a manicured, safe, curated life.
Mm, yeah.
And that manicured living doesn't is not where, at least for me personally, is not where spiritual growth happens, because
Mm,
spiritual growth seems to be happening always for me in the wild. Like like tremendous gain and growth as a spiritual person, as a man, always seems to be happen when things are very hard and very challenging. And my instincts are to just try to play it safe and keep things status quo. And I don't think that that's really it's never served me well to take that approach. And so I'm rebelling against my own nature.
yeah.
Honestly.
As you talk about spiritual growth, I think sometimes men might get disconnected from that. Guys, what I hear, and you tell me, what I hear is heart and identity alignment, which is what you talked about before.
Mhm.
Like when I dig into the spiritual, I'm digging into heart and identity alignment, which then takes the power that God gave me to steward and
Mhm.
allows me to do what Genesis called us to do pre-fall, which is like steward, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion, like,
Mhm.
and that's why personally, like, I'm like, Jesus hasn't come back because he's waiting for us to do the work that he's asked us to do. He's given us all the tools to do it. So like,
Yeah.
let's just do it, not to create utopia without him, but
Yeah.
to not sit around and just be like, yeah, everything's going to get worse and then he'll come back. I don't think that's the plan. That's a shitty plan in my opinion. I
That's a
think,
crappy plan.
yeah, I think it's like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
work with what he gave us to make
Yeah.
it awesome. And
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean without mess, but I do think that it does show up with fruit, right? With fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness,
Yeah, for
self-control,
sure.
etc.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to take bold action,
Yes.
and bold action doesn't sometimes has to take place in the wild. You have to be able to get
Oof.
a little wild and upset things to go in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, last one, and then is I highlighted this, and I'm just like, gosh, men need to hear this. It says, I've learned that secrets and shame kills a
Hmm.
man's ability to lead and thrive in an authentic way.
Hmm.
Secrets and shame kills a man's ability to lead and thrive in an authentic way. Just elaborate on that as we bless these guys and send them off.
Yeah. You know, nothing's worse than, at least my journey has been that has been worse on my spirit or in my person. My ability to have a thriving career or to be a great husband and dad or a great friend. Nothing has harmed me more than allowing shame and fear to control outcomes that I'm trusting God to help me with.
Mm,
So, it's counterintuitive, right? So, and shame is, as it directly relates to my story and recovery is I have a messy past, like nothing's more authentic than going into a men's recovery room and somebody says, um, yeah, my car's got repoed today,
mm,
or I'm going to prison, or my wife left me for my best friend, or,
mm.
like, and that those events that happen in a man's life sometimes because we make mistakes can produce a lot of shame. But
Mm.
shame is also the thing that will prevent you from being able to move forward and
Wow.
be
Yeah.
and to be reborn. I mean, God God offers redemption every day. Like
Mm,
we are redeemed every day we wake up, and we get to choose to be redeemed. And so, and that just means in practical ways to try again, to start over, to say, today I won't do that, today, just today.
mm,
And having hope and faith instead of fear that an outcome can be different this time by waking up, feeling and believing that I'm redeemed, that that was yesterday. Today I get to try again. That is highly motivational for me to know
mm,
that it's a new day.
mm,
If I looked at my past and said that meeting with Ned would never happen, it's never going to happen, it wouldn't happen.
mm,
You can't, you will never achieve anything that you cannot dream. And,
mm.
and the answer is always no, unless you ask.
Mm.
And so,
Yes.
you know what I mean? The answer is always no until you ask. And so this day with you, this call, if I were to take you into where my closet is with my clothes, there's my vision board that I created last year.
Mm.
And in my vision board, there's this little photo of two men talking on a podcast. I didn't know that today would happen. I just believed that this was God's vision for my life.
Mm.
And today is a manifestation of God's will in my life and your life to have this conversation with each other and men, because I believe that when we believe that we're redeemed, that we can think new thoughts, have new action, take action, and make today better than it was yesterday.
Mm.
And when we're rooted in fear and shame, we can never get outside of that. Tony Robbins talks about, he says that it takes 90% of the rocket fuel to get it out of the atmosphere. And I really love that. I love that analogy that 90% of my rocket fuel is going to be spent on just trying to get into new thinking, right alignment, right behavior, moving in the right direction for myself. And the last 10% will be I'm free floating and it's not as hard. So,
Mm.
and so I think about that a lot, and how, shame is really just a concrete block around my ankles that's just never going to let me get anywhere different and new.
That's
Sorry,
so
man.
good.
I told you I have a lot of words. I'm so sorry.
No. Michael, I just want to say thank you so much for the work you've done, the work I know you'll continue to do, the
Thank you.
blood, sweat, and tears through this gift you've created with Sunjoy. And I am blessed by your work. I'm blessed by your life just in this conversation. I got, 2 pages of notes here. So just feeling a depth of gratitude
Me
for all
too.
your
Me
work,
too.
and
Thank you.
thank you for challenging us. Thank you for this gift. Men listening, I just encourage you to go and support this, not just to support another brother who's like out there on the fight, trying to make this world a better place for all of us,
Mm.
but for yourself, right? To use this as a tool for your inner world, so that you can show up really, really well for your outer world. And I would just say to men, like, as a blessing, you are, from this conversation, you are a son, you are redeemed, you are incredibly powerful, you are
Yep.
loved, and something really unique. We may not have talked about fatherhood necessarily the way I normally do on the podcast, but as you think about the reality, the truth that you are a son, redeemed, powerful, and loved, we have this super wild opportunity that God has given us, and this whole idea of creation, that you get to be a father,
Mm-hmm.
and to a family, and it's an opportunity for you to know the Father in a really unique way, because you get to extend the very things that you want from a father as a son to the family that God's entrusted to you. So I
Mm-hmm.
just finish strong, finish well, go live a super full, vulnerable, open-hearted life. And when you and I are old men reflecting on this, we'll know that we gave it our all with the opportunity that was given to us. So
That's
much
right.
love and blessing to everybody. Michael, any last thoughts
Amen.
before we roll out of here?
No, thank you for this wonderful conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to share my heart and my passion with other people. That I really pray that this blesses somebody that hears it.
Yeah, I know it will. It's blessed me. Until next time, my friend.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, what did I tell you? Truly, that was incredible. I love the conversation. Could have talked to him for a couple of hours. I'm sure you're walking away feeling like this depth of like, I was a part of something just now, and I want to do something. So I would just tell you to reflect on the way that your heart feels. It's so easy. Like, as I reflect on my day, it's so easy to allow the calendar, the priorities, the urgency to have us have a moment and then sort of forget it. And it's still good, right? It did something for us this last hour and a half, but I would encourage you to notate mentally, how does your heart feel right now? And how can you and I keep that open and aware and present to all that life has for us? My friends, if you find these conversations valuable, please write a review and share it with a friend. And I highly encourage you, help a brother out, go support a fellow father fighting to make this world a better place, and just take $50 or $100 and 5 minutes of your time, go set up a Kickstarter and go pledge to support Michael's Sunjoy project. It would mean the world to me, and it would be a great way to honor him. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.